Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. If you have your own song you'd like to submit for special selection, you can find a link to do so in the description below. Today's comes at us from Michael. Says the band is Vladimir Bozar and the Sheraf Orkestär, which I hope I pronounced somewhat close. They are a French group that originally started as a Frank Zappa cover band. They only released one album called Universal Sparch, which is fitting because throughout the album they seem to speak several different languages, including English, French, German, Italian, and some Asian language that I can't pinpoint. They play an eclectic array of instruments which rides the line between chaos and genius. To sum it up in 2 words, the music is deliciously fun. That's what we're going to check out today. The track in question is called, well, it's in French and I don't want to butcher it, so it translates to Hector or the Defeat of Martin Shin. So let's dive into this and see what's going on. I just noticed that the album art is a connected dot of sorts. I see a 3, a 17, and a 20 at the bottom. 18 and 19 in the hair.
N'importe quoi. Hector à froid, Hector à faim. Racatata. Hector dort mal, lit le journal.
Normal, plutôt banal.
Il résonne dans ta tête, il galope comme un cheval.
How did this start out as a Frank Zappa cover band?
Je suis poule.
Really great bass presence, lots of fantastic ideas. I love that vocal harmony.
Pourquoi j'ai pas
Les abeilles font un travail remarquable. Quand j'étais petit, j'avais toujours dans mon cartable. Only coffee, day. Riche, merveilleux, et Boeing, c'est des mares. Restaurant, et Boeing, c'est des mares. Merveilleux, et Boeing,
Very wide soundsphere for the style of music that they're playing. What combination is this? What is even going on that right side? And now I'm expected to explain what just happened. Um, yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I have no idea what I just listened to. I can't quite say that I'm gonna have a real strong analysis here. You guys have seen how long the video is. Maybe I stumble upon some profound understanding of this. I'm kind of feeling like this is gonna be a bit short though. This is definitely a song, a band, an album that requires more than one. I'd say a lot more than one listen to even have an inkling of a comprehension of what they're accomplishing. But with that said, I think we can talk about some surface level, more global ideas that are present here and at least just discuss the things that impressed me. Things that I was certainly drawn to in the song, even if I'm not going to be able to say anything that might help people understand what was going on here or why this was awesome. We're just gonna discuss some stuff that caught my attention. I think that's what this is not gonna really be an analysis. It's just gonna be some things that caught my attention. So first of all, right off the bat, we started with some atmospheric, electronic, synth um, sounds. Right, some of it was synth tones and kind of gave it this electronic edge. Some of it was just pure nature or atmosphere sounds, like they just set up a microphone, a recorder in various real places and just took in the atmospheric sounds of the areas. And it creates a really unique soundscape to start the song off on. It is simultaneously foreign just with the way that all these sounds are combined, but there are elements of familiarity in some of these opening ideas. And The other thing I noticed right off the bat in this section is just the really wide soundscape and the intricately placed sounds within it. Like I said, some of it sounds like it was just taken from real areas, right? That just the natural ambient noise of spaces that are real. And that's going to provide its own sort of three-dimensional placement of sounds, depending on how they recorded it. But even beyond that, we have little ideas like chime shimmers and little synth sounds here and there that move around the listener. So there's some things that I'd say are just kind of baked into the atmospheres that they recorded that are going to provide this intricately placed element of putting sounds in specific areas of the soundsphere. But there is also an attention to detail that we see multiple times throughout this song about really providing a high fidelity or high quality production to this song. There are multiple electronic sections that tell me that their producer has a keen eye for production, which kind of makes you think, well, duh, that's why he's the producer. He knows about production. But, honestly, some bands, some groups, some whatever you want to call them, artists, composers, whatever, they go for specifically narrow ideas. And I suppose that there is a strong understanding of production to achieve said narrow productions, but at least in this case, the producer really has an ear for creating wide soundscapes that feel very spacious, and there's just a lot of movement within them. And like I said, we see it through multiple electronic bits in this track. I think there's 3 or 4 of them. We have our intro one, we have our outro one that's kind of paired with that sitar and some sort of flute or clarinet, some sort of woodwind. And we have the underlying electronic elements there. Then there's a couple sections in the middle. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, maybe 3 even, where we have more synth tones than anything else. And we have this really nice placement of ideas, both ones that should be in focus, more melodic or chordal ideas, and then more atmospheric ideas that kind of sit on the periphery of your attention. And just kind of do panning or placement or accents or embellishments, just little ideas that feel very particularly placed. Not everything is just centered. So, I don't know if it's because there's this electronic influence on this or just because they wanted this specific type of soundscape, this specific type of production. But the whole song from start to finish, whether it is an electronic section or not, just has this really keen ear for how the sound is created. Not just the sounds themselves, but where they're placed around the listener. So the production was something that stood out to me a lot. Secondly, though, the variety of ideas, and I don't really think I need to describe this too much. I'm pretty sure we were all on this ride together. We all experienced the highs and lows, the ups and downs. This song has it all. We have some, world folk music from all sorts of different cultures. At the end, we have the sitar, and I mentioned something in the clarinet, woodwind family, something like that. Providing a melody played with the Persian key or something with adjacent to the Persian key, which is close to it's close to Phrygian, but it is just a hair different from Phrygian. And Phrygian is the 4th mode in the West. We're getting into some theory, some higher level theory right there. But anyways, when you think of like Middle Eastern music, or if you were listening at the end and your brain went straight to the soundtrack to Aladdin or something like that. It's a specific key, a specific collection of notes that is typically referred to. I don't think it's just colloquial. I think at least in the Western world we do refer to it as the Persian key. I could be wrong on that though. It could be a colloquial thing, but I've heard several people that are more intelligent than me in music theory, professors and such, have referred to it as that. So I don't know if it's a colloquial thing or if it is more of an official naming of the key. But yeah, so we have that. We have some other sitar ideas in the middle of the song. The sitar came up a couple of times, which was interesting. We also had some European folk ideas in the middle that I picked up on. And then, of course, we have a plethora of rock based ideas. There is some heavier rock, maybe metal of some sort. We have some prog rock ideas in here. We have some more classic rock ideas. And then there is, everything prog adjacent. We had some jazzier concepts showing up in here as well. And then, of course, the whole electronic side. I'd even say that there was an Eastern European flair in some of these sections, but I'm not well versed enough in that culture and the musics from it to really, specify a specific region or anything like that. To me, it's just, like I said, it's a bit of a blank spot in my knowledge, but it definitely reminds me of something related to that area of the world, and folk musics related to the culture. So yeah, there's just a lot of influences in here. They are all over the place, and we constantly move through them. I think that final section with the sitar and the electronic bass, I think it was. We had I think we had a synth bass going on. That was the longest we sat in a section, and that was probably like 45 seconds or a minute. It felt like eternity compared to the channel surfing we were going through prior to that, but it probably really wasn't that long in retrospect. As I talked about in the past, man, contrast has a huge effect on how we engage with art. And normally I talk about volume. For instance, if you want your volume out of 10, you can't just leave it at a 10 the whole song. It's going to eventually be the new normal, and it's going to sound like the middle. If you want your 10 to feel like a 10 at the end of a song, you bring it back down to like a 3 or a 5, so that when you hit the 10 again to finish the track out, it feels big, sometimes even bigger than it was previously. And that's what happened here. So many short sections back to back that even a section that isn't long per se, comparatively to other songs or sections in other tracks, it feels so long because we're so used to these short little snippets here. Contrast is just a very powerful tool. And aside from that section, which we did sit in for a while, everything else we're just breezing by so quickly. I can't even count how many sections were in this song. I don't know if we repeated any sections. I know we repeated ideas. I don't know exactly if they were one-to-one repetition, but they were repeated ideas, right? The growling section or the harsh vocal came up twice. I don't know if the music was the same under it, but it was an idea that stood out from the rest that I, recalled a second time around. The sitar popped up twice. Maybe that's all I can remember. It might have just been a completely linear rhapsody, right? Just channel surfing through ideas till we get to the end. But the sheer variety on display here is just mind-boggling. It's because not only did we fit so many ideas into such a short amount of time, which I'm going to touch on in a second when we get into song structure, but I think that the little snippets we got of each of these sections was so well done that it shows a vast understanding of not only the styles that they hit, but also the composite styles that they created when they took one idea from one style and one idea from another and just played them together. And if you separate them out, you can really hear, like I said, an understanding of what makes these styles tick, and how to replicate them well. And so they have this combined. I don't know how many people are in this group. I'm kind of picturing a massive massive group of musicians. I'm thinking 8 to 12 easy, maybe more. I can also see a bunch of people running around in circles, bouncing from instrument to instrument, because none of these sections really had a lot of instrumentation alone. It was more of just a very wide gamut of instruments across the whole track. But yeah, I'm thinking at least 8 minimum. But yeah, just this group of people combined have such a vast understanding of a variety of musical styles, and they can bring it together into this track. And it's not just impressive alone that they can replicate all of these different ideas well, not even just well, just expertly. I None of these sections, like when we hit the prog rock section, it feels very much like I'm back home in like some standard 80s prog rock. Nothing really feels out of place or like they're trying to emulate a sound they don't quite grasp or understand what makes the sound work. Like I said, they have this really solid understanding of everything that they've done so far. But like I mentioned, they also make composite styles where they take two ideas and maybe split the instrumentation between them and smash them together. And for some reason, most of those worked too. It's just kind of bonkers how much knowledge these people have pooled together and how much innovation they have alongside that to create new sounds out of the stuff they already know well. Just yeah, the whole variety aspect just kind of blew my mind. Not to mention, I mentioned the variety in the styles, the variety in instrumentation as well. There's so many instruments here, and I'm going to assume that they were all performed, aside from maybe some of the electronic stuff. It might have been done with a live synthesizer, but it also could have just been programmed into a computer. It looks like this was created in 2010, so definitely at a time that digital music could have been worked in that way. Um, so yeah, the variety of sounds, variety of voices, and then also the variety of well, voices, vocal work. There are 5 or 6 different styles of vocals here. We have like falsettos, we have clean chest voice, we have nice harmonies between cleans, we have that harsh, we have that childlike sound that's just really nasally and like a really constricted, or it sounds like a really constricted vocal style. I'm sure they're relaxed and it's comfortable and it's a safe vocal technique, yada, yada, yada. It sounds constricted though. It sounds just very nasally and constricted, almost to the point of, an adult emulating a baby. And there were probably a couple more that I forgot about, but yeah, they just have a ton of vocal techniques within the band, and the way that they go about layering and harmonizing all of those creates a bunch of fascinating sounds and textures that can be utilized alongside the variety of music. Like, it's just limitless. Honestly, it is. They put so many ideas in this one song, and there's still an entire album left for me to check out. And I don't think I'm going to hear anything repeated between the tracks. I really believe that they have such a deep well of music to draw from that, there's just not going to be any sense of repetition or I've heard that before on this album or anything like that. So, yeah, just the sheer variety on display here is fascinating. Structure, though, we got to touch on this, right? This is the thing. You either love this or there might be a midpoint, right? But I think for most people it's going to be love it or hate it. You're either on board for the constantly flipping harsh transitions between all these ideas that just you don't even really get a chance to understand what one is doing before the next is coming in. It is just, like I said, channel surfing. You turn it on, you get the ch, and then you get like 2 seconds, you're like, that bores me, ch, 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 and you get just these little snippets of a bunch of stuff while you try to process what it is and saying, I'm not down for that, go to the next channel. And that's probably dating me a lot. The younger crowd probably has no idea what channel surfing is, but that's fine. I think that's the 3rd or 4th time I've used channel surfing as a metaphor on the channel, and I'm gonna have to find something else. What do kids do these days that would be having to choose between predetermined choices? Everything's at your fingertips. I'm getting a bit distracted here. Let's get back to Vladimir Bozar. Yeah, so we have all these pockets, and the thing is that for me, this is jaw-dropping for me in the same way as watching a band play super fast or super technical or super tight, just really pushing the human limits. I at awe in listening to this, just because we're constantly shifting all these ideas. Not only just that the composition is there, and like I mentioned, all these ideas are done very well, but also the musicianship aspect of it as well, that all these styles need to be performed live, assuming that they did live shows. I don't even know if the band's together anymore. They only had one album. For all I know, they did the album and went their separate ways. But imagining performing this live, and even imagining, like I said, having less people than instruments, which would make the most sense since none of the sections really have more than 5 or 6 ideas going on at a time. Even having 8 people, which I think would still be stretching it a bit thin in some places, a lot of people would be doubling up on instruments. You're still going to have a couple people standing around doing nothing in some of these sections, just because nothing really goes above 6 or 7 voices simultaneously. So yeah, you're going to want to have that balance where you have enough people to get everything done in each section, but not too many people that people are sitting around, which means people are going to be jumping between instruments. And just this whole idea of this rotating group every 15 or 20 seconds, again, just kind of blows my mind. The performance aspect of this, assuming that I'm correct about having a smaller amount of people, I assume they could have one person per instrument and have more of an orchestral arrangement to it, where if your part isn't playing, you are resting. I'm kind of viewing this more from a rock angle, where if your instrument doesn't play at a moment, you're on a different instrument. But either way, I still think it'd be really interesting to see it played live. But love it or hate it, I really don't know there's going to be much of an in-between. You're either going to be here for the chaos of it and just really enjoy these little snippets, these little ideas, or you're going to be frustrated that some of the ideas that you really loved aren't further explored and you're ripped out of them before you were personally ready. And I kind of fit in both of those. I found this to be jaw-dropping to listen to and fascinating to explore, but I also felt like I was being ripped out of some of these moments that I wanted to hear more from. And the one moment that they decided to stick around in, I felt was the least interesting. Or maybe one of the least interesting anyways. A lot of it was a blur. I don't know if any of the sections really had a lot of depth to keep my mind around for extended periods of time, but the last one was more of a techno exploration with a couple of ideas on top of it. And, there weren't even any vocals, so we were minus 1 or 2 layers right there. And it was interesting, much like everything else. I just don't think it worked to be the longest section of the track and the one to bring us out. So yeah, I said at the beginning, I don't think there's anyone in the middle between love and hate, and then I just said I'm certainly in the middle of it. Past me is not always looking towards the future, even 5 seconds ahead. I contradict myself 5 seconds in. So yeah, like I said, the structure, it's something. You really got to be in the mood for it, I think, to fully enjoy it. However, I am here for it, like this is immediately going on my need to listen list, especially since it's one album. I can say, hey, I checked out their whole discography in a day. Uh, it's not so impressive when you realize they only had one album, but I'm kind of here for it because it's so many ideas, and some of them are super serious, and others kind of dive into parody at moments, and some are even purely comical. There are not Well, there are a handful of sections that reminded me of System of a Down's more playful side of, just being silly, making silly voices to sing along to, or anything like that. Musically, there's even some comedic bits with passing of ideas that just make no sense, but are just kind of really great punchlines for some reason. And if you saw me chuckle at all, and it wasn't something that I think most people would be focusing on. Like the funny voices, I think most people would kind of would understand what I'm chuckling at. But if it's purely music going on, you hear me chuckle, there was a musical punchline in there. Something the instruments did was comical to me. And the one that really stands out to me was sort of like it was sort of like a little repetition conversation, and it sounded like two instruments, like da 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 dee 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 da 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 da. And it was just like this back and forth, and it just made me imagine like Charlie Brown adults. They're not talking; they are talking, but it's like their own wah wah language, and that's what it felt like to me. These two instruments having a conversation in the middle of this chaos around them, and it's just like, why? What? It's so divorced from everything that's going on around it, but it works so well. Just really great moments like that. And I think the last thing I got to talk about, because I can't find any lyrics for this, and I picked up some English in here, but not everything was in English. So, I'm really interested if someone's got lyrics on this one. I would love to know what's going on here. I don't even care if it makes sense. I don't care if it's not translated. I will use some sort of AI to translate it. Um, I gotta know. But the other thing I gotta talk about is this was a Frank Zappa cover band, and like I hear it in some places for sure. The extended use of glockenspiel in prog rock styles of music, that's got Zappa written all over it, right? Everything. I haven't heard a lot from Zappa. Five, six, 7 songs now, maybe in that range. Maybe I've hit 10. Glockenspiel or xylophone, both of them have been used extensively in a lot of the things I've heard from him. There's also a lot of playfulness in sound, and we hear that here as well. I can definitely feel the Zappa influence, but as far as I can tell, if you didn't tell me they were a Zappa cover band, I would not even really make that association because there's so many ideas outside of that playful avant-garde prog rock that I know Zappa to be for. And Zappa has done stuff outside of that. We've checked out a song that was basically one entirely long hocket, which was very impressive and very not what I expected from him. But again, there's still that playful tongue in cheek pushing against the boundaries or the norms or the expectations. That just really fits what Zappa does. Um, and so, like I said, the inspiration is definitely here from Zappa, but Zappa's not the only one who brings some of that stuff to the table, and because of that, I feel so many other bands and influences and ideas in this song in particular that, at the moment, when I think during the song somewhere I said this was a Zappa cover band at one point, and I think it was like during one of the metal moments with the harsh vocals and all that, like that is just so far separated from 70s and 80s prog rock that it's the opposite end of the spectrum for me. I know that those types of vocals were beginning to develop around the time, but the style of harshes that are being used and the music that was put under it are just very modern to me. And there's just this huge time difference, but also sonic difference. Prog rock, even though it does introduce some dissonance and jazzy ideas here and there, is still fairly predicated on melody and harmony. Whereas a lot of modern metal and what they were implementing here are very rhythmic and textual, especially when you look at the clean vocals of prog rock versus the growls that are being used here. And there's just this huge divide there. There's definitely, a path, right? You can see the lineage and how one influenced and became and branched off into the other. Or you can just say they're associated with each other, because I don't think prog rock directly influenced anything, but rock as a whole, became metal, became, harsh vocals and stuff like that. But there's just such a gap there. And, typically when you picture a cover band, it's a group of people who absolutely love what one band or artist or person has done and wants to replicate that as closely as possible. And you typically associate the style of music to the group. They're a cover band because they like that style, so much so that they want to perform it and perform it alone. So to hear a song like this that branches out in so many different other avenues of music is just really fascinating. Because even if you just look at the vocalist, and I'm going to make a huge assumption here, a huge leap, that the vocalist here was influenced by Frank Zappa's vocals and wanted to do more stuff like that, it's very odd for me to hear somebody who says, I want to sing like Frank Zappa, I want to be in a Frank Zappa cover band, and then pick up growls, right? It's like listening to a singer-songwriter pick up harsh vocals. It's just not what we associate with that style of music. And we don't really associate the music that the vocals come from with the singer-songwriter either. Or in this case, the growls with, a prog rock vocalist, a clean vocalist for prog rock music. So yeah, I think that's again, that's not really an analysis of the song. It's more of just my opinions and thoughts that I had listening to this. Was that there's so many ideas here that I just don't associate with Zappa at all, that it's kind of bonkers that my first introduction to them in the description was that they started as a Frank Zappa band, and then I got a lot of stuff that was just not that, and that's just not how I envision cover bands evolving. I tend to picture cover bands maybe getting out of the cover area and beginning to make original music, but still closely related to the stuff they were doing. They obviously loved that style enough to cover it, right? And just to hear a cover band just move in so many different branches in such extreme directions, it kind of really fascinates me. So yeah, I'm walking away from this one with a huge appreciation for the sheer variety of it, the chaoticness of it, and all the talent that goes into this compositionally, performance-wise, and production-wise. There's just a lot of really great skill being put on display here, and I need more of it. This is certainly, like I said, going into my listen list. I'm going to check this whole album out just because. Well, just because. I don't know that I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm going to be glad I heard it. And I think that's important sometimes. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Vladimir Bozar and the Sheraf Orkestär. I don't know if I said that correct. I'm trying to remember a pronunciation from Google Translate that I heard 40 minutes ago. And the song, again, I'm not going to try to replicate that, but Hector, or the Defeat of Martin Shin, is the direct English translation there. What are your thoughts on this? Have you guys heard this before? They only have 130 subscribers. I'm real curious if anybody in the community knows about them, if they've heard them before. I'm interested in any more background information. Who dropped me this? Michael. Yeah, Michael, dude, if you have any more information you want to give me, or any more information you're sitting on, you just didn't want to, give me too much of a head start getting into it, I'm down for it. Anybody, not even just Michael, anybody, if you have information on this band, let me know. How are they conceived? How many people are in it? How did they adapt from being a Zappa cover band into this, whatever this is? And just, I don't know. I need any information whatsoever. Also, you enjoyed it or not, you agree with me, disagree, anything to add on to the conversation, sure, put all those comments down. As usual, I read them all, and if there's anything interesting, I'll for sure respond to it, start up a conversation. Above the comment box is a description box, and in there is a link for Linktree. It'll take you to this menu right here. Has links for everything related to the channel. You can pick up some merch, join the Patreon, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, a bunch of stuff. Go ahead in there and check it out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps this one up. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We're going to be checking out more Wild Screamers and another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.